Hi, I'm Russ, and I've made an awful lot of mistakes. And I hope that it doesn't take you the 15 or so years it's taken me to recover from a lot of them. I got my first real taste of leadership and management probably in about 1999 or so. In Chicago, where I'm from, the startup scene, the dot-com era was a really big thing, and I bounced from these jobs to jobs and would make more money and stock options and things like that. And at one point I landed at a life event marketing company. What that means is in 1999, if you were having a baby or getting married, we would send you a CD-ROM to help you build a website. 1999, remember that. It was pretty cool to be able to do that. And we knew things like, if you were having a baby, 2 months before having a baby, you would probably buy a new vehicle because that's what Americans do. And so Ford or Chevy could purchase an ad on our CD-ROM that would pop up and remind you that you could go and buy one of their vehicles and get a discount. So it was a really cool job because I got to do things and help people get to the web, and it was just a unique opportunity. I loved working there. For the first month, I worked with a misfit team in a weird building that, I worked on a card table with a computer. I didn't even have a real desk. And I remember this very distinctly. My boss came up to me and said, "Russ, let's go out in the hallway and have a conversation." And I remember the fear, the pit in my stomach. I was terrified. I was so scared. It's like that email you get at the end of the day where somebody says to you, "Russ, we need to talk tomorrow." I thought I was getting fired, so I'm walking out in the hallway and thinking of all the things that I did. Did I say the wrong thing to somebody? What did I do? And Rob, my boss, came up and said, "Russ, you're really kicking butt. You're doing great. We love you. We're giving you a big pay raise and 10,000 more shares in the company. And, oh, by the way, you're going to lead the team, and Dan, who used to lead the team, he's staying. He's going to be on your team as well." So it was kind of weird because I really didn't understand how to lead, for one. I was just doing good as a designer. But then to also lead someone else who had just been the leader a minute ago was even more challenging. What's that? I think so. Are we having technical difficulties? Hi. Slides. No, that's Christina's got the magic presentation. Sorry. Try this again. Slides. Here, let me try something. Yeah. Wait. This is my office. Those are my Muppets. That's Jim Henson and Kermit. That's Walt Disney. All right. Now let's look at the presentation. Slides. Okay. And so being a brand new leader, not knowing what the heck to do, it reminded me a lot of this.
Listen up. We need to play offense instead of all coming up to bat.
What?
I apologize, but I don't know your games.
I think what Lantern is saying is that it's time for some teamwork. So let's pull it together.
Yeah, baby! Clap it up!
What's the plan then?
Well, he blasts those beams out of his eyes, right?
It's settled then. We blind him.
That's as good a plan as any.
As you can imagine, and for my first attempt at managing and leading, I kind of sucked. So there I was. I started out kind of being thrown to the wolves. I would have said trial by fire, but they were wolves. The people that I worked with were outstanding. And although I was making things up as I went along, which, by the way, everybody does, don't be afraid of that. I had little experience. I had no guidance, and I had absolutely zero coaching. I was in a startup with people who were MBAs who had written business plans and were new at it too. They expected me as a reasonably decent designer to be a reasonably decent leader. And I quickly found out that, especially having a team that I inherited, not one that I was able to hire and bring on board and fill needs, that they already had an established culture. So things that I wanted to do, I was kind of a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Plus, I was trying to get all of these people to do the things that I really wanted them to do. And you know, things that I thought was the right way were things that they just didn't give a crap about because they already knew how to work together as this pre-existing team. And by the way, I had just replaced the guy who was their manager before, and suddenly we're changing over to whatever this guy says. And that built some resistance, if not a little bit of hatred as well. I can't blame them. So while I didn't have a manual, in fact, all I had was crappy managers before me that I just didn't want to emulate. And I had this vision in my head of, I'm on a white horse and I'm going to be the hero and I'm going to fight the good fight for these people. And they had other agendas. They had other understandings of what they thought should happen. And this isn't their fault. It was a train wreck and I was to blame. I absolutely failed. There was nothing that these folks could have done. They were behaving what I would say was pretty normal. They had a rug pulled out from under them. I wasn't really sure that I was cut out for this. And the dreams of being a leader, the running my own team, and I'm going to do this awesome design for this startup. And by the way, I was going to be a millionaire. Everybody was going to be a millionaire in 1999 and 2000 when you worked in the dot-com era. Yeah, that just, none of that happened. I'm far from a millionaire, maybe like a $200 heir at this point. Since then, since those incredible failures, it's taken me a long time to figure out how to fix that. If anything, I took a step backward. I stopped being a leader. I was scared. I was petrified of that big failure happening again. And thankfully, there was no Twitter or Facebook or other things where people could say, that Russ, he was awful as being a manager. And if somebody quotes that out of context and puts that out there today, I'll completely understand. But I didn't have those coaches. I didn't have those mentors. I'm lucky. I have some of those out there today, some of them in the audience. And when I was extremely lucky, I would have somebody who would lead by example for me.
What's the big deal? I had him! Dude, you had squat. We had a plan. Enough, guys!
Sometimes I just needed to get my butt kicked.
You are a warrior, not a child. Act like it.
Yes, ma'am.
Now follow me to victory!
Much easier when you have those people who will tell you very frankly, you suck, and here's some ideas about how you could improve, or better yet, how do you think you can improve? And then about a month or so ago, I found this great quote in the New York Times. There are no grown-ups. We suspect this when we were younger, but can confirm it only once we are the ones writing books and attending parent-teacher conferences. Everyone is winging it. Some just do it more confidently. I love this quote, and I started thinking about how I grew up leading and managing, and I thought if we change a few words, there are no managers or leaders. We suspect this when we were younger, but can only confirm it once we're the ones writing reviews, statements of work, slide decks, attending leadership retreats. Pretty much all the managers before me or leaders before me, faking it too. I've heard them say it, fake it until you make it. You've heard this. This isn't new, but it sure as hell is new when you're the one going through it. And the things that I think that really stuck with me of where I failed most significantly was in my first managerial or leadership role, that wasn't my team. I inherited a team. We never got on the same page, had the same direction. We were moving at a very fast pace. In fact, I always felt like I was the voice or the face of design. I always felt like I owned whatever work came out, whatever was on that CD-ROM, the design behind it, that was me. Instead of being a cool design review person or using good skills, I was like a creative dictator. That's kind of a jerk. This was my ego here. And in the dot-com era, it wasn't uncommon that I would go into work at 7 in the morning and leave at 11 o'clock at night and feel awesome about it. I worked 12 to 15 to 16-hour days, had no real life, and it was the best thing because I was kicking ass and I was leading the way and I was showing everybody else how more dedicated I was. And all of that was kind of crap. One of the first things, and this probably took me the longest to figure out, was that this team was never mine. And a lot of us, as we become leaders, go into situations where a team exists. One of the things I learned about is something called the team charter. This is far and above one of the biggest things that made one of the biggest changes in how I work with teams. Team charter is a unifying plan. It's something that a team agrees upon to set rules for how they engage with each other and what their goals and objectives are. It's a lot like a persona for how we're going to be perceived and what we are, and these are what we look like. And it's a lot of work to create a team charter because the work looks a lot like this. And this is something that took place over the course of a few days. I hired an external facilitator because creating a team charter meant that it was for the team, by the team, and if I facilitated it, it meant that instead it was Russ driving it. If I'm seen as a leader or a manager, then I have influence, and it means that people will perhaps want to be sway what they're saying toward what I might like. Or even worse, I might try to take over. So I had an external facilitator come in, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Steve Julius. He very fortunately used to be the psychologist for the Chicago Bulls, so I figured if anybody could get Dennis Rodman and Michael Jordan to work together, to play together, and win rings, by gosh, he was my man. And after we did all of that work, we ended up creating a document that's this team charter that was our team's that was how we were going to behave. And what this team charter looks like is a bunch of different pieces that you try to understand. And we did this where we'd break into teams and we'd go away and answer some questions. But some of the questions were, what does this team do? What are we good at and what should we be known for? And our output looked something like this. The UX team works with our customers to create useful and usable designs. You're all designers, I think this makes sense, but we all came up with this together. It wasn't anything that I dictated, or mandated. It was something that we created together. We also talked about what's our commitment to each other. And what this means is, how do we want to work together? What are our expectations of each other? And things like, we're going to be critical of the work that we do, but not of the people doing the work. As designers, I think we all know that, but saying it and committing to it is a really big deal. It's really easy to ask somebody, why the hell did you choose that button? Versus, what were the influencing factors to this design? What were some decisions you needed to make? Or even worse, haven't you read the spec? Haven't you seen the design standards? Let's commit to each other that we're going to share our knowledge and grow and strengthen the team. And this is what we pulled up together as a team and talked about how we're going to work. We also talked about how we wanted other people to see us and the types of work that we do. So our focus areas, what are the types of work that we do? Really easily, user research, interaction design, information architecture, information design, prototyping, usability testing. When people on the team understood those things, then they could list them off to other people. It was kind of a bit of outward sales when you think about it. We could say these are the things that we do, and we all know that. We also identified our areas of growth and improvement, and this is tricky because I think that when I lead a team, I think that it's really easy to hear an area of growth or improvement as, what do you not do so well? Or what are you getting dinged at? Why aren't we good here where we should be? But instead, for us, and as the way I see this, it's a plan. So for example, our team is inexperienced at experience mapping. How do we fix that? How do we become better at experience mapping? The rationale is, this gets everyone involved in identifying touch points or what have you, orient teams around a shared understanding of a journey. And how do we know when we achieved it? And this is very important because this tells us when we've achieved this goal, and when we achieve this goal, we can create a new one. As soon as we've engaged in 1 to 3 experience mapping activities, we may have done this enough that we feel like it's a core part of what we do, and we could step back and say experience mapping is part of those capabilities that we have. We also talked about how we want the other teams outside of ours to see us. So how do we want them to be viewed? How do we build a perception of this? And then how do we know when we're there? It's very similar to that learning objective. We want to be seen as experts about our users. The way to do that is to increase research activities, to know that we're going out in the field and sharing that information, engaging others with it as best as we can, and having them understand all of these things that we do. And what we've achieved them when we've become in that common theme or voice in the UX team. One of the phrases we threw around was we wanted to be a trusted partner. And everybody on the team knew that we wanted to be a trusted partner to other teams that we worked with. External to ours, different organizations, whatever it was, not just be a service bureau doing design or UX, but their trusted partner. They would reach out to us when they had ideas and things that they wanted to do. And finally, we all signed it. It's very simple, but everybody agreed to this. This is what we are going to be and how we're going to operate. And as somebody who inherited a team, this was so incredibly valuable because we were all marching to the same drum. We were all on the exact same page, and we all committed to it. It's a lot like a persona for your team. And the benefits here were pretty huge. We identified who we were, our purpose, what was the reason for this team to be here. We had a commitment to each other, and we understood how we wanted to work together. I don't like surprises, and I think my team is growing to understand that they don't like surprises either. So how do we communicate, if not over-communicate? The areas of focus and expertise, and how do we grow those to get a bigger sense of the things that we can do in design? Again, how do we grow and improve, and then how we want to be perceived, and then it's a unified agreement. Again, we were all moving together in the very same direction. And this has been invaluable and certainly made me feel a lot better than I did back in the .com era because everybody understood and was on the same page. Next, one of the big things I learned about was critique. If you're not familiar with critique, my pals Aaron Irizarry and Adam Connor have a great website discussing design, and they've got a great presentation on SlideShare that you can learn all about it. Critique in general, actionable feedback. It's very valuable. I've learned so much from them. They're putting out a great book this year, and it's really important to talk about critique. In fact, critique is a problem, at least where I've worked. How do I get my team to do this? Aaron and Adam certainly provided a great framework for it. In fact, as a team, we rented from Jared Spool's company, UIE, we rented at the time their online webinar, did some activities, and understood better how to do critique really well. What we didn't know how to do really well was put it into place for a large organization with team members all across the United States in different locations. So I was thinking back, and I thought about something that Kim Goodwin had said back in Vancouver in 2009 at the Interaction Design Conference. This has resonated with me for years. Each one teach one. I've always tried to be a good mentor. I've always had mentors. But how could I apply this to my team and make this work when it comes to critique? Well, the trick was in the word one. It's how can each one help many instead of one? And toward the end of last year, so this is relatively new, I uttered the phrase critique buddies. And I admit that this is kind of a silly name. I come up with silly names. I have something called Acture Squad. So I'm probably not your branding person. And it's too many projects have in my company at least, are worked on by people that are over here in this part of the country or this part of the country, and they don't get to work together. And so as I was thinking about this, I came up with a plan. So over the first quarter of this year, 2014, we started forming the idea. I picked 2 people, and they were my critique leads. And right now I have Nicole and Christopher are my critique leads. And they have a team. I think it's about 4 or 5 people. Our team is about 10 or 12. And each of them gets a buddy. 3 buddies, really, 3 or 4. And I've given those buddies to the leads. And they set calendar meetings, 30 minutes a week. If you do the math on how many hours of the week it is and how much time it is, it's something like less than 3% of our time is invested in critique. It's probably not enough, but it's really helping us tremendously. Then, what happens is the critique leads meet with their buddies once a week, 30 minutes. It's really simple. They can have ad hoc meetings. They can't miss 2 weeks in a row, so that means if I skip this week because I'm out of the office, I have to have a critique buddy meeting next week. And we review work. It starts out really informal. The critique lead kicks it off and they get to know each other. So Matt, who's in Minneapolis, who's never worked with Nicole in Chicago, get to work together and get to know who each other are. And they review their projects and they talk about what the work is, and they have rules that are set up for how do we do critique. In fact, they get to know each other, like I was saying. They review what's being worked on, and it's driven by the critique lead at first for about 2 weeks. And then at about week 3, we make it just a bit more formal. And so we send out agendas from the critique buddy who says, these are the things we want to talk about. And 30 minutes isn't a lot of time, but you can discuss 2 to 3 projects or 2 to 3 design problems and get this taken care of. Then once a week, every Friday, I meet with my critique leads, and we go through what's happened on the projects that week. What happens is I'm starting to learn more about all the projects. I'm also not a design bottleneck where I'm doing critique on everything. It's freed me up to be in 100 other meetings that I need to be in. And then these folks also, they write up a critique manual that the next leads coming in can understand how the program works. And we modify that every couple of weeks or month or so as we need to. And at the end of the quarter, we select new critique leads. And it's amazing to me because it's that simple. That's what it is. And I've gotten all of these benefits out of it. In fact, I'm no longer the primary reviewer of all the design, which is fantastic. It helps me identify who the leaders are in my organization. These folks who are critique leads, they're telling me who's doing really well and who's leading and taking over in scenarios that I might not see. And they're hearing things that it's likely I wouldn't hear because as a manager or leader, there are certain things you don't want to tell that person. We're also finding out where we need to do some growth. In some cases, we've created projects where we can help people learn more about something. For example, Acture. If somebody doesn't know enough, what's a project that we can create to show this and share this out? It strengthens critique across the team, which has been amazing because not only are they very good at critique with each other now, but it shows in their design reviews that they're doing more formally. It increases distributed communication. Like I said, I've got team members who are in 5 different parts of the country, and the person in Irving sometimes never gets to talk to the person that's in California, and this is allowing them to get to meet each other and know each other. Excuse me. And finally, I think I skipped something here, sorry about that. And finally, it's improving those facilitation and presentation skills, and it increases design across the team. As we're working in a very large organization, it's important that we understand that somebody may have already designed a login thing over here and that we can reuse it over here rather than having 50 of those patterns out there. And so that's really important. Time is also another big important piece here. This is, I think I mentioned before, I used to go to work at 7 in the morning and I'd leave at 11 at night. And I thought that was awesome. But the reality is, sometimes heroes are jerks. There's a big impact when you've got people who are working as a hero, the things who are getting things done. My friend Gabby says, never do a crappy job well. And that means that if somebody gives you something that takes 2 weeks to get it done and you finish it in 2 days because you don't sleep, that's being crappy. That's not doing it very well. It also means don't do tasks that you shouldn't do because people will ask you to repeat them. But when you set the expectation of a hero, you're going to be repeating that. But not only that, if you've got something like one person who works 2 to 3 extra hours a day, and they do this repeatedly, that person working those 10 to 11 hours in an 8-hour day, if you will, is making other people who work that standard day look and feel bad. They're accomplishing more, they're doing more. And if you've got 2 to 3 people doing that, then you're getting an extra week worth of work out of your team that they're probably not getting compensated for, and you're helping them drive themselves to being burnt out. As designers, at least in the United States, there are way more jobs than there are talented people to fill them in design. If I drive people toward burnout, I'll lose them. And I can tell you, it's taken me anywhere from 2 to 6 months to fill roles on my team. So I don't want to have that. And frankly, look, from time to time, we've got those 10 to 12-hour days that you've got to work to get something done. I understand that completely. However, If it goes longer than that and it's something that seems to be happening long term, then there's problems to investigate. And in fact, how bad am I as a leader or a manager if I'm allowing that to happen? What are some of my failures here? Slow down. Slow down. What I mean is, it's really easy sometimes to sit down and just open up OmniGraffle or Acture and start doing some design. But the reality is, if we want to move fast, we got to slow down and think about our problems, think about the challenges. And you've got to slow down if you want to enjoy the work that we do. We talk to users. We get to design for them and watch them do it. That's amazing. We are blessed to be able to do that. And if we move so damn fast that we can't enjoy it, maybe we're not doing it well enough, and maybe we're not doing it right by them. So please, slow down. And also, mitigate design surprises. Big, grand reveals are for amateurs and advertising agencies. And here's what I mean by that. Design surprises cost you time. My friend Thomas Vander Waal said that design surprises are timeline assassins. Surprises cost you time because you have to redo work, you have major changes. If you are designing up until a meeting that happens on a Friday, and you're showing it for the first time, people are going to find lots wrong with it. Instead, if I have a meeting that's on a Friday, here's how I like to do this. Tuesday, internal design team review. Only the design team has been working on it, talking through problems. Doesn't matter if it's finished. And in fact, for me, I can sell something being incomplete with rational reasons better than I can sell not knowing what the hell just happened and why we weren't following spec and standards. Wednesday, internal design team, plus any front-end developers, other developers, people who need to understand what they're going to have to build to be part of this. Thursday, all the previous parties, plus any stakeholder direct reports. So, we all know there's somebody who has to sign on the line, sign the check, and approve this thing. And if I can get their people in the room with my people and the front-end developers to see this, then by Friday, when we have everybody in the room, including the stakeholder, I've got a whole group of people who have seen the design before, have no surprises. They've told this stakeholder what it looks like, what to expect, and they're all there ready to support and defend this design. Makes my life a whole heck of a lot easier. If anything, design reviews become a dull thud, and you just keep moving, and it's fantastic. And this is outside any sort of Scrum or Lean methodology things that other people work on, but I find that this works for me. In my humble experience, these people who sign off on your design, they aren't in your daily meetings and reviewing it unless you're in a fairly small company where everybody's on the team. Give others a chance to succeed and fail. And this is one of the hardest things that it's been for me to learn, as well as people who I'm coaching and mentoring. Sometimes you'll work with another designer and you'll say, well, I could just do this damn thing in 5 minutes, so just give it to me and I'll do it. And you're destroying any hope that they have of being able to be competent and do this. So shut the hell up, lighten up, give them the 3 hours of the task that you've learned to do in 5 minutes, and let them fail, and let them succeed and learn, because you had to do that. So take a breath, right? Work hard, play hard. We're all familiar with this. I kind of think it's bullcrap. The reality is, I love my family. I love my wife and kids. They are fantastic people to be around. They make me smile. They make me laugh. I want to work my tail off between an allotted set of hours, and then I want to go home and spend time with them. In fact, I'll work harder. I'll skip lunches and do whatever I can to go home earlier and spend time with those people. And if you're a manager or a leader or somebody who runs a company and you want to have an event, a social event that people can go and be a part of, at least be kind enough to let them do that on your dime, on your time, because they have those people at home that they love and care about. And maybe this is selfish because as I've grown up, these are the things that mean the most to me. But I think they're important, and you have to consider everybody has a different perspective on what's valuable to them. A couple of quick last things. Fives. I'm a big believer in fives. Jason Fried wrote a blog post about how he gave a presentation, or he was about to give a presentation, and Richard Saul-Wurman had presented. And Jason, when Richard came off stage, kind of started tearing into him. And Richard Saul-Wurman said, whoa, give it 5 minutes. And he was right. It means you don't have to have a knee-jerk reaction to everything. And 5 minutes in your organization, maybe 24 hours. The panic or the fear that happens right now may solve itself by tomorrow. In fact, I had a customer that I spoke to last year who, he told me he gets into work at 9:30 in the morning, and I asked him why, as we do. And he said that if he came in earlier, if he walked into his office at 7:30, he'd have to put out fires, but by coming in at 9:30, they managed to put themselves out. Take a breath, right? 5 years. If you're stressed out and you're losing your mind, ask yourself this question: will this matter 5 years from now? If yes, go do something about it. If not, let it go. I want to break into that song from Frozen every time I let it go. All right, so I have children, both girls, and I've seen it 1,000 times. Here's my big thing: team charter, facilitation, collaboration, and critique. And what's awesome about this is, for the most part, these aren't technical or even really design skills. Well, I take that back. I think facilitation, collaboration, critique are definitely design skills, but there's nothing technical about them. These are very important things for you to be aware of. Soft skills are so much a big part of it. Understanding how to deal with time can teach you so much more and free up your time. And if anything, you'll become a little bit better manager.
This is bigger than I am, and it's bigger than you are. Get out of your own way. Focus on what's important here. Everyone else.
That's right, everyone else. From Lao Tzu: leader is best when people barely know she exists. When her work is done, her aim fulfilled, they will say, we did it ourselves. As a leader, it's very little about me when work is completed. It's about how excellent the team did. This is really important to remember. It has very little to do with you when it's leadership. It has to do with everyone else coming together and doing great things. And finally, keep on winging it confidently. Obrigado.